Olivia Bennett sprinted down Fifth Avenue, her heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The crisp October morning air stung her cheeks as she dodged between pedestrians. Her worn leather portfolio clutched tightly under one arm. She was already 15 minutes late for the most important job interview of her life. The subway delay had turned her carefully planned morning into complete chaos. Sterling Tech Corporation. The name alone was enough to make her nervous. It was one of the most prestigious technology companies in New York, known for innovation, excellence, and impossibly high standards. Getting an interview there had felt like winning the lottery. Being late felt like throwing that lottery ticket into the wind. Good start. I need to continue the story, introducing the car window moment in Julian. Let me keep going with the narrative flow. She rounded the corner onto Park Avenue and finally saw the gleaming glass tower that housed Sterling Tech. Her breath came in, short gasps, as she slowed to a stop about 50 feet from the entrance. She looked down at herself and groaned. Her blouse had come untucked on one side, her hair had escaped from its neat bun, and she could feel a bead of sweat trickling down her temple, despite the cool weather. This was not how she wanted to make a first impression. Olivia glanced around desperately for somewhere to fix herself up. The building's reflective windows were too far away, and there were too many people around. Then she spotted it, a sleek black Mercedes parked at the curb directly in front of the building. The tinted windows were dark enough to provide privacy, but reflective enough to serve as a perfect mirror. Without thinking twice, Olivia hurried over to the car and leaned close to the passenger window. She set her portfolio on the hood and began frantically smoothing down her hair, tucking stray strands back into place. She tugged her blouse straight, checked for any visible stains, pulled out a small compact from her purse to dab away the shine on her forehead. She was so focused on her reflection that she didn't notice the window beginning to roll down. Inside the car, Julian Sterling had been reviewing quarterly reports when movement outside caught his eye. He looked up to see a young woman using his window as a mirror, completely absorbed in fixing her appearance. Her expression was intense, almost comical in its concentration. She muttered something under her breath, something that sounded like, "Please don't let me look like I just ran a marathon." Julian found himself smiling. In his world of carefully orchestrated meetings and rehearsed conversations, there was something refreshing about such unguarded honesty. He watched her for a moment longer, taking in the determination in her eyes, the way she bit her lower lip in concentration, and the absolute refusal to give up despite clearly having had a rough morning. He pressed the button to lower the window. The mechanical hum made Olivia freeze. Her eyes widened in horror as the dark glass descended slowly, revealing a man inside. Not just any man, but possibly the most attractive man she had ever seen in real life. He had dark hair styled perfectly, sharp features, and eyes that seemed to see right through her current mortification. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her entire month's rent. "Oh my goodness," Olivia stammered, jumping back from the car. "I am so sorry. I didn't think anyone was in there. I was just trying to look presentable for an interview, and I was running late. And your window was right there, and I know that's not an excuse for invading your space." Julian's smile widened. "It's quite all right. How do you look?" "What?" Olivia blinked, thrown off by the question. "Your appearance. Did you achieve the level of presentability you were aiming for?" Despite her embarrassment, Olivia felt a small laugh escape. "I think so. Though now I probably look like someone who just got caught doing something embarrassing. Which I did, so that's accurate. Well, for what it's worth, I think you look perfectly professional," Julian said, his tone warm. "Good luck with your interview." "Thank you," Olivia managed, grabbing her portfolio from the hood. "And again, I'm really sorry about the whole window situation." She turned and hurried toward the building entrance, her face burning with embarrassment. She could feel his eyes on her back, but didn't dare look around. All she wanted was to get inside, compose herself, and somehow salvage this interview. The lobby of Sterling Tech was even more impressive than she'd imagined. Marble floors, modern art installations, and a sleek reception desk that looked like something from a science fiction movie. Olivia approached the receptionist, gave her name, and was directed to the 42nd floor. In the elevator, she took deep breaths and tried to center herself. The car window incident was just a minor blip. The interview was what mattered. She'd prepared for weeks, researched the company thoroughly, and practiced her answers until they felt natural. She could do this. The elevator doors opened to reveal an elegant waiting area. A woman in her 30s with an efficient smile greeted her. "Miss Bennett, Mr. Sterling will see you now." "Please follow me." Olivia's stomach fluttered. Mr. Sterling, the CEO himself, was interviewing her. That seemed unusual for an executive assistant position, but perhaps the company did things differently. She followed the woman down a corridor lined with glass-walled conference rooms until they reached a large office at the end. The door was open. The woman gestured for Olivia to enter. Olivia stepped inside and felt her entire world tilt on its axis. Behind the massive desk sat the man from the car. The man whose window she had just used as a mirror. The man who had wished her luck on her interview. Julian Sterling rose from his chair, and that same warm smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Miss Bennett, please, have a seat." Olivia stood frozen in the doorway, her mind racing through several different emotions at once. Shock, embarrassment, confusion, and underneath it all, a strange flutter of something she couldn't quite name. "You," she finally managed to say. "Me," Julian confirmed, clearly enjoying her reaction. "I believe we've already met, though not formally. I'm Julian Sterling." Of course he was. Of course, the man whose car she'd practically accosted was the CEO of the entire company. Because apparently, the universe had decided that today was the day to test exactly how much embarrassment one person could handle. "I should leave," Olivia said, taking a step backward. "This is clearly not appropriate. I used your car window as a mirror, and now you're interviewing me, and there's no way this can be professional." "Why not?" Julian asked, moving around the desk. "You needed a mirror. My window was available. You apologized. I accepted. That interaction is complete. Now we're here for an interview, which is a separate matter entirely, but you must think I'm completely unprofessional. Actually, I think you're resourceful. You had a problem, you found a solution. And you didn't let your circumstances prevent you from continuing toward your goal. Those are exactly the qualities I look for in an executive assistant." Olivia searched his face for any sign that he was mocking her, but his expression seemed genuine. Slowly, carefully, she moved toward the chair he'd indicated and sat down. Julian returned to his seat and opened the folder in front of him. Her resume. "Your background is impressive. Top of your class at Columbia, internships at 2 major firms, excellent references. Why do you want to work at Sterling Tech?" And just like that, they were in interview mode. Olivia took a breath and let her preparation take over. Sterling Tech represents the intersection of innovation and impact. Your company doesn't just create technology, you solve real problems. The education platform you launched last year has reached over 3 million students in underserved communities. That's the kind of work I want to be part of. Julian nodded, making a note. "And what do you know about the role of executive assistant to the CEO? It's demanding, requires discretion, exceptional organizational skills, and the ability to anticipate needs before they're expressed. It's not just about managing a calendar. It's about being a strategic partner who helps the CEO focus on what matters most. Have you ever been anyone's strategic partner?" Olivia hesitated. "In my last position, I assisted the CFO of a mid-sized marketing firm. When she was preparing for a major investor presentation, I noticed gaps in the financial projections that could have undermined her credibility. I stayed late 3 nights in a row to help rebuild the models. She said I saved her career. Why did you leave that position?" This was the harder question. Olivia met Julian's gaze directly. The company downsized. The CFO kept her job, but they eliminated support staff. She wrote me the strongest recommendation letter I've ever received. Julian studied her for a long moment. "What's your biggest weakness?" Olivia almost laughed. "Right now. Apparently it's using other people's cars as mirrors." A surprised laugh escaped Julian, and Olivia felt something shift in the room. The tension eased slightly, replaced by something more comfortable, almost friendly. "Seriously, though," she continued, "I sometimes care too much about getting things perfect. I've been known to revise reports multiple times when once would have been sufficient. I'm working on recognizing when good enough is actually good enough. They continued talking for another 40 minutes. Julian asked about her experience with various software programs, her approach to problem solving, how she handled stress. Olivia answered honestly. You're no longer trying to present a perfect image, but simply being herself. Finally, Julian closed her file and leaned back in his chair. Miss Bennett, I'm going to be direct with you. This position is incredibly demanding. I work long hours. I travel frequently. I need someone who can keep up, who won't quit when things get difficult. Can you handle that? Yes, Olivia said without hesitation. I can. Even if it means occasional early mornings and late nights. I'm already awake early enough to run to interviews and make poor decisions about car windows. Late nights won't be a problem. Another smile from Julian. The salary is $75,000 to start, with benefits including health insurance and a performance bonus structure. You'd begin Monday if you accept. Olivia's breath caught. $75,000 was more than she'd hoped for. More than she'd made at her last 2 jobs combined. With that salary, she could finally help her mother with medical bills, maybe even start saving. I accept, she said. Julian stood and extended his hand. Olivia rose and shook it, feeling the warmth and firmness of his grip. Welcome to Sterling Tech, Miss Bennett. I think this is going to be an interesting partnership. As Olivia left the office, her mind was spinning. She had the job. Against all odds, despite the disastrous start to her morning, despite using the CEO's car as a mirror, she had actually gotten the job. She didn't know it yet. But that moment by the car window had started something neither of them could have predicted. A connection that would grow beyond professional boundaries, beyond logic, into something that would change both of their lives forever. But for now, Olivia Bennett walked out of Sterling Tech with a smile on her face and hope in her heart, ready to begin her new life. Ready for whatever came next? Olivia's first week at Sterling Tech passed in a blur of learning curves and endless information. She arrived early each morning, stayed late every evening, and filled 3 notebooks with details about Julian's preferences, his schedule patterns, and the intricate web of relationships that made up the corporate structure. She learned that he took his coffee black, hated unnecessary meetings, and had a tendency to work through lunch. If she didn't remind him to eat, what surprised her most was how easy it was to work with him. Julian was demanding but fair, expecting excellence without being unreasonable. When she made mistakes, and she did make them in those early days, he corrected her with patience rather than anger. When she succeeded, he noticed and acknowledged it. But not everyone at Sterling Tech was pleased with her presence. On her second Monday, Olivia overheard 2 senior managers talking by the coffee machine. She had gone to the break room to refill Julian's water pitcher and stopped short when she heard her name. I don't understand why Sterling hired someone so inexperienced, a woman's voice said. It was Patricia Chen, the head of operations. We had internal candidates who'd been with the company for years. You know why? A man responded. Olivia recognized the voice as belonging to Richard Foster, the chief financial officer. She's young and attractive. Sterling's been alone since the engagement ended. Maybe he wanted some pleasant scenery in his office. Olivia felt her face burn. She wanted to march in there and defend herself, but her feet seemed rooted to the floor. The casual cruelty of their words stung more than she wanted to admit. That's unfair, Patricia said, though her tone suggested she wasn't entirely convinced. But still, executive assistant to the CEO is a position that requires years of experience. She's going to crash and burn within a month. Olivia quietly backed away and returned to her desk without the water. She sat down, staring at her computer screen without really seeing it. So that's what people thought. That she was hired for her looks rather than her abilities. That she didn't belong here. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice Julian emerge from his office until he spoke. Everything all right? Olivia looked up, forcing a smile. Fine. Just reviewing the materials for tomorrow's board meeting. Julian studied her face, and she had the uncomfortable feeling that he could see right through her pretense. You're a terrible liar, he said quietly. What happened? For a moment, Olivia considered brushing it off, but something about Julian's genuine concern made her honest. I overheard some people talking. They think I'm not qualified for this position. They think you hired me for the wrong reasons." Julian's expression hardened. "Who said this?" "It doesn't matter. It does to me." Olivia shook her head. "I don't want you to fight my battles. I just need to prove them wrong. I need to show everyone that I earned this position." Julian came around and leaned against her desk. "You don't need to prove anything to anyone except yourself. But if you're determined to show them what you're capable of, I have a project that could help." That's how Olivia found herself leading the preparation for Sterling Tech's biggest product launch of the year. It was a new educational software platform designed to help students in rural areas access quality learning materials. The launch event was scheduled for 6 weeks away, and Julian wanted it to be perfect. The work was intense. Olivia coordinated with marketing, engineering, public relations, and a dozen vendors. She worked 12-hour days, sometimes longer, but she loved every minute of it. This was exactly the kind of meaningful work she'd hoped to do. Julian worked alongside her, reviewing presentations, approving designs, making strategic decisions. They developed a rhythm, an unspoken understanding of how the other person thought and worked. Late evenings became routine. The office would empty out, leaving just the two of them in the soft glow of desk lamps, debating details and refining plans. It was during one of these late nights, 3 weeks before the launch, that something shifted between them. They were testing the presentation software, making sure every slide transitioned smoothly. Olivia sat at the conference table while Julian stood by the screen, advancing through the slides. They'd been at it for hours and exhaustion was setting in. "Next slide," Olivia said, making a note about a typo. Julian clicked the remote, but nothing happened. He tried again. "Still nothing? I think the battery died. There should be spare batteries in the supply closet," Olivia said, standing up. "I'll get them." But when she turned to head for the door, her foot caught on the power cord running across the floor. She stumbled forward, and Julian instinctively reached out to steady her. His hands caught her arms, and suddenly they were standing very close. Close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. Close enough to catch the scent of his cologne. "Careful," Julian said softly, but he didn't let go. Olivia's heart hammered in her chest. "I'm always doing clumsy things around you, I've noticed. It's actually kind of endearing." They stood there for a moment that stretched too long, awareness crackling in the air between them. Then Julian stepped back, releasing her arms. And the moment broke. "I'll get those batteries," Olivia said, her voice not quite steady as the weeks progressed. These moments of connection became more frequent, a hand brushing against hers when passing documents, eyes meeting across the conference room during meetings, conversations that started about work but drifted into personal territory. Olivia learned that Julian had built Sterling Tech from nothing, starting in a garage apartment 12 years ago. That his parents had died in a car accident when he was 25, leaving him alone in the world. That he'd been engaged once to a woman named Victoria Ashford, the daughter of a major investor. But the engagement had ended 2 years ago. Under circumstances he didn't elaborate on, Julian learned that Olivia's father had left when she was 8, that her mother had raised her alone while working 2 jobs, and that her mother was now battling a chronic illness that required expensive treatments. He learned that Olivia sent most of her paycheck home to help with medical bills, that she lived in a tiny studio apartment in Queens, and that despite everything, she remained optimistic about life. The more they learned about each other, the harder it became to maintain professional distance. The turning point came at the annual Sterling Tech Gala, a black-tie charity event that raised money for educational initiatives. Olivia had tried to beg off attending, claiming she had too much work to do. But Julian had insisted that, as his executive assistant, her presence was required. She'd borrowed a dress from her college roommate, a simple black gown that was elegant without being flashy. When she arrived at the hotel ballroom, she felt immediately out of place among the designer dresses and expensive jewelry. Julian found her within minutes. He wore a perfectly tailored tuxedo and looked like he'd stepped out of a magazine. When he saw her, something flickered in his eyes, appreciation mixed with something deeper. "You look beautiful," he said simply. "Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself." They spent the early part of the evening circulating separately, Julian networking with investors and board members while Olivia tried to blend into the background. But she couldn't help noticing the women who approached Julian, elegant and sophisticated, touching his arm and laughing at his comments. Women who belonged in his world in a way she never would. She was standing near the bar, trying to look occupied, when a man approached her. He was in his 50s, slightly drunk, with the confident swagger of someone used to getting what he wanted. "You're Sterling's new assistant, aren't you?" he said, looking her up and down in a way that made her skin crawl. "Yes," Olivia said politely. "Olivia Bennett." "Robert Hastings. I'm on the board." He moved closer, invading her personal space. "You know, there's a tradition of executive assistants at Sterling Tech. They usually don't last long. Sterling goes through them pretty quickly. I wonder if you'll be different." The implication was clear and insulting. Olivia felt anger flash through her. "I plan to last quite a while, actually. I'm very good at my job." "I'm sure you are," Hastings said with a smirk. "Very good at certain aspects of it anyway." Before Olivia could respond, a voice cut through the air like ice. "Hastings." Julian appeared beside them, his expression pleasant but his eyes hard. "I need to borrow Miss Bennett. There's an urgent matter that requires her attention." Hastings backed off immediately. Of course. We were just chatting." Julian placed a hand on the small of Olivia's back and guided her away from the bar, through the crowded ballroom and out onto a quiet terrace overlooking the city. The cool night air was a relief, after the stuffiness inside. "Are you all right?" Julian asked, turning to face her. "I'm fine. I can handle people like that. You shouldn't have to." His jaw was tight with anger. "Hastings has always been a problem. This gives me the excuse I've been looking for to remove him from the board." "Don't do that because of me," Olivia protested. "I don't want to cause trouble. You're not causing anything." He crossed a line. Julian ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "I hate that you have to deal with this. The rumors, the assumptions people make. It comes with the territory. I knew that when I took the job, it shouldn't have to." Julian looked at her intently. "You're the best assistant I've ever had, Olivia. You're smart, capable, and you care about the work we're doing. You deserve respect, not innuendo." Olivia felt warmth spread through her chest at his words. "Thank you for saying that." They stood in silence for a moment, the sounds of the party muffled behind them. The city lights sparkled below, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of autumn. "Can I ask you something?" Olivia said quietly. "Anything. Why did you really hire me? Was it just because of my qualifications?" Julian was quiet for so long that Olivia thought he might not answer. Then he said, "When I saw you outside my car that morning, I saw someone who refused to give up despite difficult circumstances. Someone who was resourceful and determined and honest. Then, in the interview, you confirmed everything I'd sensed. Yes, your qualifications were excellent. But what made me certain was seeing who you are as a person." He paused, then added more softly, "And I suppose I should admit that I found you intriguing from that first moment. The way you talked to yourself in the reflection, the way you laughed when you realized I was in the car. It was real in a way that nothing in my life usually is." Olivia's breath caught. "Julian, ... I know we need to maintain professional boundaries," he continued. "I know there are 100 reasons why we should keep things strictly professional. But I want you to know that working with you these past months has been the best part of my days." Before Olivia could respond, the terrace door opened, and Patricia Chen stepped out. "Mr. Sterling, the mayor would like a word with you about the education initiative." The moment shattered. Julian straightened, his expression shifting back to neutral professionalism. "Of course. I'll be right there." Patricia disappeared back inside. Julian looked at Olivia, conflict clear in his eyes. "We should go back in." "Yes." Olivia agreed, though her heart was racing. They returned to the gala, but everything had changed. The words hung between them, acknowledged but not resolved. Olivia moved through the rest of the evening in a daze, hyper-aware of Julian's presence across the room, replaying his words in her mind. When she finally got home that night, she sat on her small bed and faced the truth she'd been avoiding for weeks. She was falling for Julian Sterling, and she had no idea what to do about it. The morning after the gala, Olivia arrived at the office early, hoping to lose herself in work and avoid thinking about Julian's words on the terrace. But when she reached her desk, she found a note waiting for her in Julian's handwriting. We need to talk. My office, when you arrive, Jay. Her stomach flipped. This was it. He was going to tell her that his comments last night were inappropriate, that they needed to maintain strict professional boundaries, or worse, that she should look for another position to avoid complications. She knocked on his door at exactly 8 o'clock. "Come in," Julian called. He was standing by the window, his back to the door, hands in his pockets. The morning light cast him in silhouette. "You wanted to see me?" Olivia said, her voice steadier than she felt. Julian turned to face her. He looked tired, like he hadn't slept much. "I owe you an apology for last night. I put you in an uncomfortable position by saying what I said. It was unprofessional and unfair to you. It wasn't unwelcome," Olivia heard herself say. Julian's eyes widened slightly. "What?" She took a deep breath. If he could be honest, so could she. "What you said on the terrace. It wasn't unwelcome. Because I feel the same way." The silence that followed was charged with electricity. Julian crossed the room slowly until he stood directly in front of her. "Olivia," he said quietly, "if we pursue this, it will complicate everything. People will say you're getting special treatment. They'll question every decision I make regarding you. It could damage your reputation and your career." "I know. And yet I can't stop thinking about you," she admitted. "I try to keep things professional, but then we're working late, and you smile at something I said. Or our hands touch when we're reviewing documents. And I feel like my heart might beat right out of my chest." Julian reached up slowly, giving her time to pull away, and cupped her face with his hand. "I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since the morning you used my car window as a mirror. You've turned my entire world upside down." He leaned in, and Olivia rose on her toes to meet him halfway. Their lips met softly at first, tentative and questioning. Then Julian's other hand came up to frame her face, and the kiss deepened into something that made Olivia's knees weak. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Julian rested his forehead against hers. "We should probably set some ground rules." "Probably," Olivia agreed, though she made no move to step away. "At work, we maintain professional boundaries. No one can accuse you of using our relationship for advancement." "Agreed. Outside of work, we take this slowly. Figure out what this is between us." "That sounds reasonable." Julian smiled. "Though I should warn you, I'm not very good at slow." "Neither am I," Olivia admitted with a laugh. They tried to follow their own rules. They really did. At work, they were models of professionalism. But outside the office, they fell into a relationship with surprising ease. Dinner dates that stretched for hours. Weekend walks through Central Park. Late-night phone calls that lasted until dawn. Olivia discovered that Julian was funny when he relaxed, with a dry wit that caught her off guard. That he was generous, not just with money, but with his time and attention. That despite his wealth and success, he was fundamentally lonely and had been for years. Julian discovered that Olivia was fiercely independent, often to her own detriment. That she had a terrible singing voice, but sang anyway when she was happy. That she was brilliant at reading people and situations, a skill that made her invaluable, both as an assistant and as a partner. For 3 months, they existed in a happy bubble. The product launch was a massive success, earning Sterling Tech widespread praise and new contracts. Olivia's role in organizing the event became known throughout the company, earning her respect even from former skeptics like Patricia Chen. But happiness, Olivia had learned, was often temporary. The first crack appeared when Victoria Ashford returned to New York. Julian's ex-fiancée had been living in London for the past 2 years. But her father's investment firm was merging with a New York company, bringing her back to the city. And because business and personal life inevitably intertwined at their level, Victoria's return meant she would be at meetings, events, and gatherings that Julian attended. Olivia first encountered Victoria at a charity luncheon. She was everything Olivia wasn't. Tall, blonde, impeccably dressed in clothes that cost more than Olivia made in a month. She moved through the crowd with the ease of someone who had been attending such events since birth. When Victoria spotted Julian, she made a beeline for him. Olivia watched from across the room as Victoria kissed Julian's cheek, her hand lingering on his arm as they talked. That's Victoria Ashford, a voice said beside her. Olivia turned to find Richard Foster, the CFO who had once dismissed her as inexperienced. His expression was sympathetic now. She and Julian were together for 5 years. Everyone expected them to build an empire together. What happened? Olivia asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know. Richard shrugged. No one knows for certain. Julian never talks about it. But Victoria left for London pretty suddenly after they ended things. Olivia looked back at Julian and Victoria. They looked perfect together, like they'd stepped out of a society magazine. Meanwhile, Olivia felt like an imposter in her borrowed dress and department store shoes. That evening, when she and Julian were alone in his apartment, she tried to bring it up casually. Victoria seems nice. Julian was in the kitchen opening a bottle of wine. She is nice. We ended things amicably. Why did you end things? He was quiet for a moment, pouring wine into 2 glasses. Because I realized I was with her for the wrong reasons. Our families approved. It made business sense. We looked good together, but I didn't love her. Not the way I should have. It wouldn't have been fair to either of us to continue. He brought the glasses over and handed one to Olivia, then sat beside her on the couch. Why are you asking? I saw you 2 together today. You fit in that world. With her, with all of it. And I'm just someone who happened to use your car window as a mirror. Julian set down his wine glass and turned to face her fully. You are not just anything. You're smart, compassionate, hardworking, and you make me happier than I've been in years. Don't compare yourself to Victoria. There is no comparison. But doubt, once planted, was hard to uproot. Over the following weeks, Olivia noticed how often Victoria appeared at events. How she always found a reason to talk to Julian. How she looked at him with an expression that suggested unfinished business. The situation came to a head at a board dinner. Olivia wasn't attending as it was strictly for board members and department heads. But Julian texted her throughout the evening with complaints about the boring presentations. His last text came at 10 p.m. Finally wrapping up, come over? I'll order from that Thai place you like. Olivia smiled and texted back that she'd be there in 30 minutes. But when she arrived at Julian's building, the doorman informed her that Mr. Sterling had already gone up with a guest about 10 minutes earlier. Confused. Olivia rode the elevator up to Julian's penthouse. She used the key he'd given her to let herself in, calling out as she entered. Julian. She heard voices from the living room. Julian's and a woman's. Victoria's. Olivia stood in the entryway, uncertain whether to announce herself or leave quietly. Then she heard Victoria say, I made a mistake leaving. I've thought about you every day for 2 years, Julian. We were good together. We could be again. Julian's voice was gentle, but firm. I care about you, but not in that way. I'm with someone now. Your assistant? Victoria's tone turned sharp. Everyone's talking about it. They're saying you're having a midlife crisis, slumming with the help. Olivia's face burned. She should leave. She should definitely leave. But her feet stayed rooted to the floor. Don't talk about her that way, Julian said, and there was steel in his voice now. Olivia is brilliant and kind, and I don't give a damn what people say about us. But I could give you so much more, Victoria pressed. My father's firm is about to close a deal that would triple Sterling Tech's market share. All you have to do is consider giving us another chance. Think about what we could build together. The silence that followed made Olivia's heart sink. Business had always been Julian's priority. Could he really turn down an opportunity like that? I need you to leave, Julian finally said. I appreciate what you're offering, but my answer is no. My relationship with Olivia isn't a negotiation, and it's not for sale. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. Olivia heard footsteps approaching and quickly ducked into the hallway. She rode the elevator back down, her mind reeling. Julian had chosen her over a massive business opportunity. But for how long? How long before he started resenting her for what he'd given up? She was halfway home when her phone rang. Julian, where are you? He asked when she answered. I thought you were coming over. Something came up. Olivia lied. I'm sorry. I should have texted. Are you okay? You sound strange. Just tired. Long day. She could hear the doubt in his voice when he said, Okay, get some rest. I'll see you tomorrow. But Olivia barely slept that night. By morning, she'd made a decision that broke her heart, but felt necessary. She arrived at the office before Julian and left a formal letter of resignation on his desk. Then she went to her own desk and began packing up her personal belongings. Julian arrived 20 minutes later. She heard his office door close, then a long silence. When his door opened again, he stood in the doorway holding her letter, his face pale. "What is this?" "I think it's best if I move on," Olivia said, not meeting his eyes. "I've learned a lot here, but it's time for me to explore other opportunities." Julian crossed to her desk in 3 long strides. "Look at me," she did, and the pain in his eyes almost broke her resolve. "This is about last night, isn't it?" he said. "About Victoria? How did you know?" "Because you said something came up suddenly, and suddenly you're quitting." "You were there? You heard what she offered." Olivia nodded, tears threatening. "And I heard you turn it down." "But Julian, I can't be the reason you miss out on opportunities like that. You've worked too hard to build sterling tech. You deserve someone who can stand beside you in that world, not someone who holds you back." "You're not holding me back," Julian said fiercely. "You're the only thing that makes any of it worthwhile. But the board, the investors, people like Victoria, who can actually help the company grow. I don't care about any of that if I lose you." "You should care," Olivia insisted. "This company is your life's work." Julian took her hands, holding them tightly. "I built this company because I needed something to focus on after my parents died. It was a way to prove I could succeed, that I could matter. But somewhere along the way, I forgot why success was supposed to matter in the first place. Then you came along and reminded me, I don't understand. Success without someone to share it with is just loneliness with better furniture," Julian said with a slight smile. "I'd rather have you in a studio apartment than an empire alone." A tear slipped down Olivia's cheek. "That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard." "But it's true." He wiped away her tear with his thumb. "Don't quit, Olivia. Don't run away from this. We'll figure it out together." Before Olivia could respond, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her heart stopped. It was her mother's nurse. "I have to take this," she said, answering quickly. "Hello?" The conversation lasted less than a minute, but by the end of it, Olivia was gripping the desk for support. Her mother had collapsed at home. She was being rushed to the hospital. They needed Olivia to come immediately. "I have to go," Olivia said, grabbing her purse with shaking hands. "My mother, ... "I'll drive you," Julian said immediately. "You have a board meeting in an hour? I'll reschedule." Come on, they made it to the hospital in record time. Olivia's mother was in the ICU, her condition critical. The doctors explained that her illness had progressed faster than anticipated. She needed a specialized treatment that her insurance didn't cover. The cost was staggering, over $200,000. Olivia sat in the waiting room, numb with shock. Even with her salary, even saving every penny, she couldn't come close to that amount. She was going to lose her mother because she couldn't afford to save her. Julian sat beside her, holding her hand. After a while, he said quietly, "I'll cover it." Olivia looked at him. "What?" "The treatment. I'll pay for it." "Julian, no. I can't let you do that." "Why not?" "Because it's too much. Because I'd never be able to pay you back. Because I don't want you to think I'm with you for your money." Julian turned to face her fully. "I don't think that. I've never thought that. And I'm not offering this as a loan or as some kind of transaction. I'm offering because I care about you, and I care about your mother, and I have the means to help. Let me help." Olivia wanted to argue, wanted to maintain her pride and independence. But when she thought about her mother lying in that hospital bed, pride seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford. She whispered, "Thank you." Julian spoke to the hospital administrators, and within hours, Olivia's mother was scheduled for the treatment. The doctors were optimistic. With the new protocol, she had an excellent chance of recovery. That night, Olivia sat by her mother's bedside while she slept. Julian had gone to get coffee, and for the first time all day, Olivia was alone with her thoughts. She'd spent so much time worrying about whether she fit into Julian's world, whether she was good enough, whether their relationship was a mistake. But in the moment that mattered most, when her world was falling apart, Julian had been there without hesitation or judgment. He hadn't offered help to obligate her or control her. He'd offered because he loved her, and she loved him, completely, terrifyingly, undeniably. When Julian returned with 2 cups of terrible hospital coffee, Olivia stood up and wrapped her arms around him. He held her close, one hand stroking her hair. "I love you," she said into his chest. "I've been too scared to say it, but I love you." She felt him exhale, felt his arms tighten around her. "I love you too. I have for a while now." They stood there in the quiet hospital room, holding each other, while Olivia's mother slept peacefully and the machines beeped their steady rhythms. Over the next few weeks, Olivia's mother improved dramatically. The treatment was working. She was going to be okay. And during that time, Olivia and Julian grew even closer. He visited the hospital with her every evening after work. He brought her mother flowers and books and sat with her while Olivia handled phone calls or paperwork. Her mother adored him. "That man loves you," her mother said, one evening when Julian had gone to find a vending machine. "And you love him. I can see it in how you look at each other. Is it crazy?" Olivia asked. "He's a billionaire CEO, and you're my brilliant, kind, hard-working daughter," her mother interrupted. "And anyone would be lucky to have you, including him." The test came when the quarterly board meeting arrived. There had been rumors for weeks that some board members were uncomfortable with Julian's relationship with his assistant. Richard Foster had warned Julian that there might be pushback. Julian had asked Olivia if she wanted him to address it publicly. She'd said no. She didn't want to be the center of drama. She didn't want to cost him his company. But on the day of the meeting, as Julian prepared to face the board, Olivia made a decision. She walked into that boardroom without being invited, her heart pounding but her head high. Julian looked surprised to see her. So did everyone else. "Miss Bennett," Patricia Chen said, "this is a closed meeting." "I know," Olivia said, "but there's something I need to say." She looked around the room at the faces of people who had judged her, dismissed her, and questioned her place in this company. Then she looked at Julian and found her courage. "I know some of you have concerns about my relationship with Julian. You're worried it's inappropriate, that it gives me unfair advantages, that it reflects poorly on the company. And I understand those concerns. If I were in your position, I might feel the same way." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "But I want you to know that I have never asked Julian for special treatment. Every project I've worked on, every responsibility I've been given, I've earned through my work. And if my relationship with him is a problem for this board, then I'll resign. Right now. Because I won't be the reason this company loses a brilliant CEO." The room was silent. Then Julian stood up. "For the record," he said, his voice calm but firm, "Miss Bennett's relationship with me has nothing to do with her job performance. She was an excellent assistant before we became involved, and she continues to be excellent now. If this board has a problem with my personal life, then you're welcome to replace me. But Olivia stays." Patricia Chen cleared her throat. "Mr. Sterling, no one is suggesting we replace you, aren't you?" Julian challenged. "Because it seems to me that you're using my relationship as a proxy for other concerns. If you have issues with my leadership or my decisions, let's discuss those directly. But leave Olivia out of it." Robert Hastings, the board member who had insulted Olivia at the gala, spoke up. "The concern is perception. What message does it send when the CEO is dating his assistant?" "It sends the message that I'm human," Julian said. "That I'm capable of separating my professional judgment from my personal feelings. And frankly, given that Olivia organized our most successful product launch in 5 years, I'd say the message it sends is that I have excellent taste in both colleagues and partners." There was a murmur around the table. Then Richard Foster spoke. "I think we're making this more complicated than it needs to be. Miss Bennett has proven her value to this company. Her relationship with Julian is her business. As long as she continues to perform at the high level she's demonstrated, I see no reason for this board to interfere."
Oh.
One by one, other board members nodded agreement. Even Hastings, though he looked sour about it, didn't argue further. Patricia Chen looked at Olivia. "Miss Bennett, your offer to resign is noted and appreciated, but not accepted. You're an asset to this company." Olivia felt like she might cry from relief. "Thank you." As the meeting continued with other business, Julian caught Olivia's eye and smiled. She smiled back, feeling like something fundamental had shifted. They'd faced the scrutiny, the judgment, the complications, and they'd come through it together. After the meeting, Julian found Olivia in his office. She was standing by the window, looking out at the city. "That was either very brave or very foolish," he said. Coming to stand beside her, "Probably both," Olivia admitted. "Thank you for being willing to resign, though I would never have let you." "I know," she turned to face him. "But I needed to show them, and myself, that I'm here on my own merit. That we're both here on our own merit." Julian pulled her close.
We are.
And now, everyone knows it. 6 months later, Olivia's mother was declared in remission. The treatment had worked better than anyone had hoped. She was healthy, energetic, and back to her normal life. To celebrate, Julian organized a small dinner party at his apartment. Olivia's mother was there, along with E from the office and a few close friends. It was intimate and warm. Everything Olivia loved about the life she and Julian had built together. After dinner, Julian tapped his glass for attention. "I'd like to say something." The room quieted. Olivia looked at him curiously. "A year ago," Julian began, "I was standing in my car when a young woman decided to use my window as a mirror. She had no idea I was inside. She had no idea that watching her determination, her refusal to give up despite having a rough morning, would change my life." He looked at Olivia, his eyes warm. "Since that day, Olivia has challenged me, inspired me, and shown me what it means to truly live rather than just exist. She's made me laugh, made me think, and made me believe in partnership in a way I never did before." Julian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Olivia's breath caught. "So I have a question," he said, getting down on one knee. "Olivia Bennett, will you marry me?" The room was silent. Olivia looked at the man kneeling before her, the man who had seen her at her most embarrassed and her most vulnerable. The man who had supported her dreams, cared for her mother, and stood by her against all criticism. The man she loved with her whole heart? "Yes," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Yes, absolutely yes." Julian slipped the ring onto her finger and stood, pulling her into a kiss, as the room erupted in applause and cheers. When they finally pulled apart, both laughing and crying, Olivia's mother was dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "I knew it from the beginning," her mother said. "From the first time you told me about using that car window, I knew." Later that night, after everyone had left, Olivia and Julian stood on his balcony overlooking the city. She leaned against him, his arms wrapped around her from behind. "Do you ever think about how different things could have been?" she asked. "If I hadn't been late that day, or if I'd chosen a different building entrance, or if you hadn't lowered your window." "All the time," Julian admitted. "And every time, I'm grateful for the exact way it happened. Because it led to this. To us." "To us?" Olivia echoed, looking at the ring sparkling on her finger. They stood there in the cool evening air. Two people who had found each other in the most unexpected way. A billionaire and his assistant, a CEO, and the woman who'd used his car as a mirror. Two hearts that had collided by chance and chosen each other by design. And as the city lights twinkled below them, full of millions of other stories and other lives, Olivia knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this story. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to click like. Share this story with your friends and family, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more and meaningful stories.